Spooky season has begun, which means it's time for scary movies, corn mazes, pumpkin spiced everything, and of course, one of my favorite parts of the season, Halloween Haunt. And oh man, does Canada's Wonderland have some fun things planned for this year's event. Ghoulish day everyone, and welcome to another episode of Theme Park Parlay here on Adventures with Parker. In today's episode, we're going to discuss everything you need to know about Halloween Haunt and Camp Spooky 2022 at Canada's Wonderland. I'll be covering the backstories of every maze and scare zone at Halloween Haunt, discussing all of the shows and other activities across both events, and I'll go over some important policy changes and helpful hints that you should know before you visit. I've divided this video up into chapters, so if you're looking for anything in particular, feel free to skip ahead to what you need. But if you ask me, I would recommend sticking around for everything, because this haunt season is gonna be a good one. So without any further ado, let's talk Scream Parks. This year, Halloween Haunt will be coming back in a full swing, which means that yes, the mazes are back. However, there won't be as many mazes as we're used to seeing in previous years. Wonderland normally does 8 to 10 mazes every year, but here in 2022, we're only getting 5. It looks like the park is going to keep the extra scare zones that were introduced in last year's modified event in lieu of those mazes, which is understandable given how popular those were. But we are getting a brand new maze this year, which is exciting. So without any further ado, here are your mazes for Halloween Haunt 2022. Let's start off by talking about our new for 2022 maze, Pandemonium. The dark tunnels under the mountain are no place for humans, especially after dark. When the creatures of the pit awaken, they use their mind-warping tricks and luminescent traps to confuse their prey, luring them to a ghastly demise. The vibrant lights may appear to promise salvation, but they're only a harbinger of the pandemonium that is about to ensue, as you're embraced by the cold, dark death of the shadows and the creatures that live within. Okay, so this is interesting. The description doesn't tell us much about what this maze will entail, but to me, it sounds like a next-gen version of Blackout, which was a maze that guests would navigate in total darkness. However, I think this version will incorporate more lighting and visual effects to create some disorienting illusions. Whatever the case may be, I'm pretty excited to experience it, and I'll be sure to share exactly what this maze entails in my Halloween Haunt vlog. Pandemonium will be one of 2 mazes located in Wonder Mountain this year, the other being the Ruins. Usually, the 2 mountain mazes are done back to back, and it looks like 2022 will be no exception. Speaking of which, next up is the Ruins. Centuries ago, world-renowned archaeologist Dr. Carver gathered an adventurous team to uncover ruins that had not seen human contact in thousands of years. Shrouded in mystery, the adventurers knew the dangers they faced, but had no idea just how deadly a mission they had embarked upon. To this day, no one knows exactly what they found when they entered those long-forgotten tombs, but legends of massacre and evil curses still remain. Some say Dr. Carver encountered devilish creatures lurking in the shadows, waiting for new victims to torture for all eternity. The lone survivor spoke only once about his venture into the ruins. He mumbled about curses, spirits, and unimaginable horrors. He was plagued with terrifying nightmares for the rest of his life, which drove him insane and left no record of the truth about the ruins. They have since discovered a second entrance deep within Wonder Mountain. It is now up to you to travel along the same bloodied path, discover the horrifying truth, and try to get out alive. This maze has some of the coolest sets and props that I've ever seen at Haunt. Its location in the depths of the mountain also works really well with the story. Now, there's no mention of this on the website, but in 2019, this maze was plussed with some interactive flashlights that guests would have to use to navigate the maze. It was a neat little touch, so it'll be interesting to see if that aspect makes a return as well. Next is a haunt classic that's been terrifying guests since 2005, Cornstalkers. Old Man Howell's farm drew thousands each fall to visit his elaborate corn maze. Within the twisting aisles and dead ends, families laughed and explored under the golden autumn sun, scarecrows watching over the activities from their perch between the corn rows. Every morning, he would open the gates to waiting visitors, allowing them to wander his maze at their leisure. His only rule was to be out by dusk. Each year, a trip to Howell's corn maze became an anticipated and cherished tradition for the residents of the local town. That is, until some teens snuck in after dark. When their bodies were found, the parents and townspeople accused Howell of the murder. When he was not found guilty, they were outraged. When he reopened his corn maze the next year, they sought vengeance. The townspeople fenced off his property and abandoned it. With the onset of winter, everyone hoped this dark chapter was over. Except for every year, a new crop of corn still grew. Without tilling, or watering, or sowing, the corn still grew. Even as the forest matured around it and choked out the rest of the farm, the unnatural corn still grew year after year. The only figures ever seen were Howell's scarecrows, always silently perched over the crop, guarding the corn. A legend grew that the land was haunted, and what was once a beloved yearly tradition became a collective nightmare. The townspeople avoided the area, and a new generation of kids grew up knowing never to venture into Old Man Howell's cornfield, especially after dark. Cornstalkers has always been one of my favorite mazes. I love how it weaves through the Whitewater Canyon forest. It really makes you feel like you're in the middle of nowhere. I also usually get quite a few good scares in here, so I'm very happy to see it return once again. Next up, we have what is, in my humble opinion, the best maze Wonderland's haunt has ever done, Spirit Manor. Beware of the cursed mansion set high on a hill, up a winding lane. Towering over all its visitors, the crumbling manor bears no resemblance to the grand abode it once was. After a horrible tragedy occurred, the mansion became a haunting ground for terrifying spirits. Troubled ghosts, the victims of brutal murders, torment innocent souls who wander its halls. Everywhere you turn, demons lurk in the darkness, searching for their next victim. They drift through the moldy hallways, moaning and wailing about torturous thoughts. If you get caught in their grasp, be warned. The murderous phantoms are always looking to add to their numbers. Spirit Manor was once home to happy people and lavish parties, but has since been infested with ghastly demons and phantoms out for blood. I've talked about this in my top 10 Halloween haunt mazes of all time video, which you should totally check out, by the way. But the thing about Spirit Manor that always blows my mind is how well themed it is. The level of details of these sets approaches the standard you see at Universal's Halloween Horror Nights. This maze will be located in the old Action Theater building, and it's usually paired with Cornstalkers, meaning you do both mazes back to back. And finally, we have one of the creepiest mazes I've ever done, the Crypt. Extending below the bustling streets of the city are the catacombs housing the remains of more than 6 million people. Disinterred from cemeteries and discarded in an unused mine at a time when cemetery space was limited, the remains have been forgotten and have become merely decoration and a growing tourist attraction. One tourist falls behind the group and makes a turn into the wrong corridor, the darkness of the vault enveloping him. It draws him into its cold, deathly embrace as rats scurry along the bones lining the walls. He senses he's not alone here, but his attempts to escape are futile. The shadows are moving in, the dead are rising, and the crypt welcomes no one. Again, the set design of this maze is usually pretty well done, but the thing that always stuck out to me was the audio. The sound of bones creaking and snapping just gives me the heebie-jeebies. This maze will be located in the Arcadian building of Medieval Fair. Of course, the mazes are only half of the terror that awaits you at Halloween Haunt. 8 scare zones are ready to welcome unsuspecting visitors in 2022. Now, if you've never been to a haunt-type event before, a scare zone is basically an open area with sets, props, and of course, scare actors. But unlike the mazes where you have to walk through them in one direction without stopping, scare zones allow you to linger and wander through them as you please. You also get to have some cool interactions with the scare actors. They're usually down for a fun little chat, after they've startled the living heck out of you, of course. Anyways, as I said, Wonderland will have 8 scare zones this year, with many of the new zones introduced during last year's modified event making a comeback. There aren't any new scare zones though, so for the interest of time, I am going to skip over their backstories. But if you are interested in hearing them, be sure to go back and watch last year's video, which will be linked down in the description. But let's start off with the first scare zone you'll encounter during your visit to Haunt, the Gates of Terror. Gates of Terror is always a fun and chaotic area to start and end your evening at Haunt. It's located right at the front of the park on International Street, and although it doesn't have as flashy or elaborate of a set as the other scare zones do, the graveyard display in the flower bed is always a sight to behold. Now, you'll always find a few scare actors throughout the night, but things really get crazy at the very beginning and end of your night, when every scare actor from all of the park's scare zones congregate for a bloodbath of terror. Next up is another old favorite that's been around since Haunt's inception, Carnival. I love it when scare zones fit into the land in which they're located, and Carnival's spot in International Festival is pure perfection. Of course, the clowns are amazing with their sarcastic quips and fun banter. That is, when they're not trying to sneak up behind you. Carnival is also neat because it incorporates a few themed shows, which we'll talk about later, and Kraken Wagon gets a fun haunt twist with clowns riding along with you in their very own clown cars. Another Halloween Haunt staple returning this year is Ghostly Pines. It's not Halloween Haunt without a spooky graveyard, and this scare zone definitely has that covered. Now, this is purely speculation, but because the Forest of Fear scare zone isn't returning this year, I think that some of the haunted forest elements from that zone will be amalgamated into Ghostly Pines. Again, I'll confirm this in my Halloween Haunt vlog after my first visit. Ghostly Pines will be located in the Grand World Exposition near Backlot Cafe. One of the new scare zones introduced last year that will be returning for 2022 is Kingdom of Carnage. As I've said with Carnival, I love when scare zones fit the lands in which they're located. I mean, it makes sense for a park with a medieval-themed land to have a medieval-themed scare zone, right? Anyways, Kingdom of Carnage will be located in the castle courtyard in front of Canterbury Theatre. Next, let's talk about Streets of the Undead. Streets of the Undead will be located in Behemoth Plaza, which means you're kind of forced to go through it if you want to ride Behemoth, which is a cruel move on Wonderland's part, but in the best way. My favorite scare zone from 2021 is back this year, and that's the Farmstead. This is one of the larger scare zones that Haunt has to offer, and I love it because it kind of feels more like a maze than a scare zone. If you're looking for some good jump scares, the Farmstead is definitely the place to be. I also love that the backstory of the scare zone is connected to the lore of Bloodshed, a previous Halloween Haunt maze, which in turn is tied to the same universe as Cornstalkers. It's just all connected, and I just eat that kind of stuff right up. You can find the Farmstead on the path between Yukon Striker and Canyon Trainer. Next up, we have Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat is the perfect scare zone for those of you who love a twist on the retro Halloween theme. They usually have these cool houses set up in the zone with these fun interactive doorbells, and the scare actors in here are always super fun. Trick or Treat will be in a new location this year, taking up residence in front of the Bat. And last, but definitely not least, is the one and the only Wicked Hollow. I have the biggest soft spot for Wicked Hollow. The scare actors in this zone are just so amazing, albeit terrifying. and if you've ever seen any of my past Halloween haunt vlogs, you know this is where I typically have the best interactions. Even if everyone in there wants to turn me into fertilizer. Anyways, Wicked Hollow also has a new location this year, and you can find it directly behind Wonder Mountain in the Vortex Plaza. Now, as fun and awesome as the mazes and scare zones are, Halloween Haunt also has some fun, sinister shows, and this year's lineup sounds incredible. Let's start with a brand new offering debuting this year, the Day of the Dead Festival. Here's what the park's website has to say about it. In the tradition of Mexico's Dia de los Muertos, join us in honoring the dead every night during Halloween Haunt with a musical parade, costumes, specialty food and drink, and a cultural dance and story performance by the Mexicans Folk Ballet. Celebrate the spirit world and remember those who passed at this colorful Day of the Dead festival, where friendly calacas, skeletons, help welcome the deceased as our honored guests. Okay, this sounds awesome, and is unlike anything I've seen at Haunt before. It seems to combine a show with a food festival, and can we talk about the fact that this will be the first time we've had a parade at Wonderland since the Paramount days? Anyways, I think this just might be the thing I'm most excited for at Halloween Haunt this year. The festival will run throughout the night, with the parade and performance by the Mexicans Folk Ballet happening at 7:30, 8:30, and 9:30. All of this will be taking place in Medieval Fair, kind of near Arthur's Bay. First introduced in 2019, Freak Show and The Illusionist will both be returning to the Carnival stage in 2022. The Freak Show can best be described as a sort of stunt show where gruesome and thrilling acts are performed for a strong-stomached crowd. If you've ever seen the show Jackass, well, the Freak Show is very much in that vein. The Illusionist, on the other hand, is a magic show that's both comical and mesmerizing. You can catch the Freak Show at 7:30, 9 o'clock, 10:30, and 11:30, and the Illusionist will take the stage at 8, 9:30, and 11. Back again for 2022 is Inferno. This Cirque-style show combines feats of strength and athleticism with lots and lots of fire. It's a very fun show, and if you've ever seen the old Devil's Circus show, this is basically the next generation of that. I really hope they bring back the same host because that character is so funny and he's just one of my faves. This year, Inferno will be showing at Arthur's Bay, which makes me think that they'll use the high diving and trampoline structures on the lagoon there. Either way, it's definitely a must-see show in my opinion, and it'll be showing at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and 11 o'clock. Another favorite haunt show of mine is Skeleton Crew. I guess this show is best described as an acrobatic show, but they really take it to the next level with their costumes and humor. Anyways, it's a haunt classic, and I'm so glad to see its return for 2022. You can catch the Skeleton Crew on a stage in front of coasters at 8, 9:30, and 11. Vampire Disco is back for 2022, and if you need to take a break from all of the chaos and carnage and just let loose on the dance floor, this is the place for you. The vampire DJs are so fun, and the energy here is always a vibe. Now, I kind of avoided Vampire Disco last year because I wasn't too keen on being in the thick of a big crowd at the time, but you know I'll be dancing my heart out this season. And for any of you vampires out there who are watching this, that was a figure of speech. I'd very much like to keep my heart and my blood and all of my other vital organs. Thank you very much. And of course, no trip to Haunt is complete without catching a glimpse of the zombie marching band and the deathly LED drumline. These ghoulish bands roam throughout the park during the course of the night, and it's always fun to catch them going by. Now, with the park as big as Canada's Wonderland, it's not always easy to track them down, so if you're just dying to see them, no pun intended, they usually position themselves by front gate at the end of the night. Haunt is also a great opportunity to ride all of your favorite Canada's Wonderland attractions. Most rides are open during Halloween Haunt, with the exception of the water rides and anything in Planet Snoopy or Kidsville, which are blocked off during the night. Now, when I was looking on the park's website, I noticed that Time Warp, Soaring Timbers, Swings of the Century, Antique Carousel, and Riptide were not listed as rides that would be open during Halloween Haunt. I'm not sure why these rides are being excluded from the event, but if you're wanting to ride any of those attractions, be sure to do it during the regular operating day. Of course, Wonder Mountain's Guardian is getting its usual Halloween transformation to become the Zombies Interactive Dark Ride, which means that the whole dragon storyline that you normally see on Guardian is replaced with that of a zombie apocalypse. Here, you must use your blaster to defeat the zombies and to save the civilians before it's too late. Halloween Haunt will be taking place from 7 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday from September 23rd to October 30th, with the exception of Sunday, September 24th. Now, something that is very important to know if you're planning on attending Haunt this year is that Canada's Wonderland has changed their bag policy. Guests may not bring bags larger than 6.5, 4.5, and 2 inches of any kind into the park, and this includes purses, backpacks, or diaper bags. Now, this policy doesn't apply if you're visiting during the day or for Camp Spooky, but if you're in the park during haunt hours, big bags are a no-no. And as with every other year, you're not allowed to wear makeup or costumes during Haunt, and this is just to ensure that no one tries to impersonate the actual scare actors. I would also be careful if you're planning on wearing something spooky or gothy. One year I saw someone turned away because even though they weren't wearing a costume per se, their outfit did look like some of the costumes that the scare actors wore. Did they look fabulous? Absolutely. But they were asked to change, and again, that's just for safety. As I said, the event starts at 7, but I would definitely recommend getting there early. With traffic, queues to enter the park, and the fact that it wouldn't be a theme park trip unless something goes wrong, I would recommend getting to the park by 6:30 at the latest. Actually, the park starts letting people in at that time anyways, and you're free to hang out on International Street until the rest of the park opens. This is perfect, because it gives you a chance to have your first interactions with the scare actors and the Gates of Fear, grab yourself a pumpkin spice latte from Starbucks, and then you're right there at the front of the line when everything else opens. Which brings me to my next tip. If you plan on riding Zombies Interactive Dark Ride, do that first. The capacity on that ride is not great, and the lines can be absolutely horrendous. But if it's the first thing you do, you may be able to beat the crowds and enjoy the rest of your evening. You're also right there for the mazes in the mountain, so you can knock out that whole area while you're at it. Alternatively, if you don't mind skipping out on the zombie ride, start out by heading to the left side of the park and get some rides in on Behemoth, Backlot Stunt Coaster, Sledgehammer, and Yukon Striker. Those areas become very busy as the night progresses, but you can really get a lot done in the first hour. I also recommend doing that anytime you visit Canada's Wonderland, so it doesn't just apply for Haunt. Speaking of beating the crowds, Halloween Haunt gets busier and busier as the season progresses. Essentially, the closer you get to Halloween, the bigger the crowds are gonna be. Saturdays are also particularly busy, so try to go on a Friday or Sunday early in the season if you can. Now, if there's any shows you really want to see, be sure to plan your night around those showtimes so you don't miss anything. Mind you, it can be a fun surprise to stumble across a show and catch a few minutes of it before moving on to your next maze, but if you're an entertainment fan like me, planning is key. Now, this tip may be a matter of personal preference, but I would recommend prioritizing the mazes and scare zones over the rides. You can experience the rides anytime you want, but these haunt attractions are only there during this short period of time. Also, the night goes by so fast, so if you want to do everything, save your rides until after you've done all the mazes. Scare zones aren't as big of a deal because you can just wander through them as you please, and you'll probably end up walking through them anyways on your way to something else. But yeah, I would try to get through all of the mazes as soon as you can. Another benefit to this is that crowds really start to get heavy after 8:30 or so getting the mazes done first can save you from waiting in some wretched lines later. The last tip I'm going to share is when you're in the scare zones, don't be afraid to talk to the scare actors. Every character you see has a fun backstory, or at least they'll make one up pretty quick. And it can be really fun to play along with them and ask them questions and stuff like that. Now, if you're going to do this, please be respectful. It's not fun for anyone if you're rude or inappropriate, and just use common sense. There's a fine line between playful banter and being a jerk, but it's not difficult to know where that boundary is. And of course, never touch any of the scare actors. They won't touch you, and the least you can do is give them the same respect. I guess what I'm trying to say here is that it can be extremely fun to suspend your disbelief and enter this terrifying, fantastical world of monsters and demons, but at the end of the day, these monsters and demons are real people that have feelings and boundaries that need to be respected. All while you're running away from them in terror, of course. Now, Halloween Haunt isn't for everyone. It can be frightening, and it's a bit of a sensory overload. So if it's not your style, but you still want to get into the Halloween spirit when you're at the park, there are plenty of family-friendly alternatives for you, the majority of which will be a part of Camp Spooky. Camp Spooky takes place on weekends from September 24th to October 30th during the regular park hours. This event is included with admission and features trick-or-treating, a kids' Halloween costume parade, live shows, and more. Kids are able to meet all kinds of friendly spooks throughout Kidsville and Planet Snoopy, including princesses, pirates, ghosts, vampires, and more. You can also meet some friendly farmers in the Farmstead area near Yukon Striker and Canyon Trader, and fantastical fairies in a Wicked Hollow near Vortex. This year, there will be pumpkin decorating by Canyon Trader, where kids can purchase and decorate their very own pumpkin to take home. With the trick-or-treat adventure, kids can do some trick-or-treating throughout Kidsville and Planet Snoopy, while meeting some friendly characters along the way. Trick-or-treat stations will be located near Silver Streak, the entrance to Whitewater Canyon, Snoopy's Revolution, and Sally's Love Buggies. At Sally's Dance Party, kids can dance their spooky little hearts out with Sally from the Peanuts. This party will be taking place on the Maple Park stage. Spooky Tales with Snoopy will be an interactive Halloween show featuring Snoopy and the gang on the Peanuts stage near Beagle Brigade Airfield. The Peanuts characters will also be available for meet and greets in their Halloween attire. And finally, you can explore a fright-free version of Cornstalkers and Spirit Manor, where friendly characters help you on your way, which is a great way to see what these mazes look like without the risk of jump scares. Outside of Camp Spooky, the Frontier Canada stage will host 2 fun shows throughout the day. Skeletoons, featuring a friendly skeleton drumline, and the Pumpkin Patches, who will harmonize to some fan-favorite Halloween tunes. One of my favorite things about visiting the park in the fall is that the entire place is absolutely decked out in Halloween and fall decor. And when you mix that in with the changing colors of the leaves, it just creates this beautiful atmosphere. Also, I love exploring the scare zones during the day. The scare actors aren't around, but you can really appreciate the sets and some of the details that you may not notice in the dark. Plus, they make for some great photo opportunities. The Haunt store on International Street is also something you have to check out. It was first introduced last year and is absolutely brimming with cool Halloween Haunt merch and Halloween decorations. And finally, we have the food! The park hasn't mentioned anything about their fall menus yet, but they always have some tasty Halloween treats. Some restaurants even do a spooky twist on their regular menu. So yeah, you definitely have to sample some things when you're there. My fall visits to Canada's Wonderland are always some of my favorites, and between Haunt, Camp Spooky, and all of the other fall offerings, there's lots to explore. If you have any questions about the things I discussed in this video, be sure to leave a comment and I'll do my best to help you out. Also, be sure to check out my Haunt vlog whenever that comes out. I'm going to try to visit during the first weekend, and during my vlog, I'll be sure to give my reviews and point out anything interesting that I notice along the way. So yeah, if you're not already, be sure to subscribe for that and all of my other theme park, travel, local, and outdoor adventures. Spooky season is a very busy time on my channel, so I have a lot of cool content on the horizon that you do not want to miss. You can also follow me on Instagram and Twitter at ADVParker, and on TikTok at Adventures with Parker. Big shout out to my patrons for all of the support you guys give me and my channel. Y'all are the best, especially my ultimate adventurer Dominic. If you like what I do here and want to support the channel and get some cool perks like exclusive bonus content in return, you can head to patreon.com/advparker to learn more. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and remember, the Spook Adventures are calling. Next up, we have what is, in my humble opinion, the best maze that Halloween